Hi everyone, okay, this is Marvin. How have you been? Okay, how many of you were actually awake last night at about 11:30, 11:40, and then suddenly you receive a message, okay, about cooling measures effective December 16, 2021, and then you look at your watch, what is the date today, and then you realize you have minutes, okay, before the cooling measures come into effect, okay? And then many of you were in that position, correct or not? Okay, and then you're wondering, oh no, what has happened, okay? In fact, after that, I got messages. I did not see that at that point in time. I was a bit busy, okay, but later on I got messages, I got texts, I got calls, okay, in the middle of the night, because everybody wanted to find out, okay, how this thing is going to impact, okay, and what actions they need to take, and so on and so forth. Okay, so if that was you, okay, then therefore in the morning you probably started to read the newspaper, you started to talk to people that are supposed to understand this, like your property agent or myself, you know, or maybe your banker and all that, you know, and then you started to see the news, okay, deciphering this event to you. Okay, so I thought that since I'm getting so much questions on this, I thought that I'll run through the new measures, okay, so that you have a clearer idea what is happening, okay, and so that you know what are the things that you can do to take care of your property portfolio, okay, and what to do with your plans. All right, so once again, I'm Marvin Lee from ERA. I'm a Senior Group Division Director. I'm also a speaker with the company for Consumer Talks. You know, I'm a project DD for the Woodleigh Residences. I've already sold out Park Colonial, the Trevor, the Navian, okay, and definitely I'm someone that my clients like to bounce off their ideas with, okay, and so hopefully today this video will serve to give you some idea how you can navigate the property market in moving forward from today. Today is the 16th of December, okay, so it's already in effect. There's nothing you can do, you just have to understand it. All right. Okay, so without further ado, okay, let me now go through the property cooling measures with you. So it's about Singapore's property cooling measures and what you should know. Okay, so I want to make this as easy and as simple as possible for you, okay, so that you can have takeaways, so that you have clarity. Okay, so just a bit of a disclaimer, okay, this is really information that I've prepared, okay, and hopefully it will be helpful to you to the best of my ability, okay, that the information is accurate. I've stated the sources as well. You can always refer to them, all right, and this does not constitute recommendation, okay, or advice to buy or sell properties, okay. So, okay, you can read out this disclaimer at your own time, all right, and I'm going to go straight into today's topic, okay. To understand why was there suddenly a cooling measure that was being announced. Okay, so MND actually states that it's really measures to promote a stable and sustainable property market. Okay, measures are applicable to all residential properties, transaction and option to purchase granted on or after 16th of December 2021. Okay, that means on or after today. All right, then it will apply. Before today, it will not apply. Okay, that's as simple as that. But of course, there are some terms and conditions which you need to pay attention. Okay, so what's the first thing that really hit us so strongly? Okay, the first thing is the additional buyer stamp duty is now higher. Okay, higher, H-I-G-H-E-R, higher, and nobody likes that. Okay, if you're in the market for buying real estate, okay, you wouldn't want this, okay, but the government deems that it's necessary, okay, in order to keep the rate of increase for property prices at a sustainable rate. Okay, so the keyword is sustainability. And how does it affect you? If you're a Singaporean buying your very first property, then basically ABSD does not affect you. You attract 0% and as before, and now it's still 0%. Okay, if you're a Singaporean buying your second property, previously you had to pay an additional buyer stamp duty of 12%, but now you only have to pay 17%. 5 more percent. Okay, Yesterday, today, example, $1 million. Yesterday, today, additional 50K. Alright, 15% for your third property and above, 15% previously, okay, but currently 25%. The increase is 10%. Why is 10%? Yesterday, you have to pay 150,000 on 1 million. Okay, today 250,000 on 1 million. Wow. Okay, never mind. Let's go on. Permanent residence. Okay, so well, you have come to build Singapore together with Singapore. You have an intention to become a Singaporean one day, perhaps, and therefore, you attract 5% before, and we keep it the same for you at 5% moving forward. Okay, for your very first property, well, because hopefully we want you to be a Singaporean. Okay, then of course, then buying your second property, if you're PR, there's an increase of 10%. Buying your third property and outwards is increase of 15%. Okay, so in other words, okay, out of $1 million, the ABSD now you will have to pay will be 300K. Alright, so that is the kind of additional buyer's stamp duty that you will attract. Foreigners, okay, congratulations, Singapore is really a very good place for you to invest. Previously, you have to pay a premium of 20%, which is the additional buyer's stamp duty, okay, to you upon purchase of the property, but after, or rather today onwards, it will be 30%. Okay, for your first property and every subsequent property. If your entity, it was from 25% increased by 10% to 35%. Okay, so the ABSD rates for the first property purchased by Singapore citizens and permanent residents remain unchanged. Congratulations, congratulations. Let's do. Okay, so it's unchanged, so therefore a lot of Singaporeans still looking to buy properties. Okay, second thing, tighten total debt servicing ratio, TDSR threshold from 60% to 55%. Okay, in other words, okay, previously out of $10 that you earn, okay, $6 you can use to repay your all your debts. All right, but currently you can only use $5.50. Okay, this is for more prudent measures, okay, so that you will be able to sustain your property ownership. So new mortgages cannot cause borrowers total monthly loan repayment to exceed 55% of monthly income. TDSR threshold for refinancing, this is a bit of a good news, of existing property loans granted before 16 December 21 remains at 60%. In other words, if you have already owned a property, you have taken a loan and it was granted before 21 December 16, then therefore you will still be entitled to the 60% TDSR, okay, in terms of your refinancing in future. Alright, so only those who are buying from now on, or your loan is approved from tomorrow onwards, okay, then therefore it is still subjected to the new measures. Okay, please at any point in time, please clarify with your banker or your mortgage broker, okay, so that you have clarity as to your how it applies to you. Okay, this is very important. The third thing is reduce loan to value, LTV, limit for HDB granted loans from 90%, 85%. So last time when you wanted to buy a HDB from the government and you want to take HDB loan, you are entitled to up to 90%. Okay, 90%, okay, loan to value. Okay, that means if the property is worth 300,000, okay, you can take up to 270,000 in terms of loan from HDB. Okay, but of course you still need to clear out your HDB first, okay, your CPF first, okay, and therefore actually most people will not hit the 90%. Okay, will not hit the 90%, maybe some, okay, but that's how the government wants to help you to own a ceiling over your head. All right. The LTV limit for loans obtained from financial institutions to purchase HDB flat remains unchanged at 75%. It doesn't change if you're taking a loan from a bank, okay, for instance. All right. So before, now, so how has this why is this cooling measure necessary? Okay, let's look at 2018. 2018, 5th of July, there was an announcement at about 6 o'clock, you know, and it was said that the ABSD will be increased. Okay, so of course there was a mad rush, okay, of people buying properties. Okay, thousands of units were sold, okay, that night, okay, because everybody was rushing to qualify for the existing rate, okay, and so save some money lah, okay. But at that point in time, the government actually explained that it was necessary because from Q2 2017 to Q2 2018, okay, just a period of about 1+ years, the property prices actually increased 9.1%. Okay, that is quite rapid. Okay, quite rapid, and there was actually some concern over that. Okay, and therefore the government introduced the cooling measure to stabilize, okay, the prices, okay, so that it will be more sustainable. So the keyword is sustainable. Alright, so then what happens after that? Okay, from Q2 2018, that means after the cooling measure was announced until Q3 this year, okay, it increased about 10.9%. Okay, but having said that, the 1+ year before that, Q4 2020, last year, Q4 to Q3 this year, there was an increase of 5.3%. In other words, this short period of time accounted was increased by 5.3, which is quite significant, okay, and therefore gave rise to some concerns by the government that the rate of increase is too high, and therefore they stepped in, okay, with the cooling measures today. That's what makes sense, isn't it? Right? That to make it prudent for the market to be sustainable. Okay, so this is probably the reason why the so-called cooling measures were announced last night. Okay, so to give you a bit more idea what has been happening is that, you know, the prices for HDB has been so-called more or less stable. Okay, until where? Until second quarter 2020, last year. Okay, about June onwards, suddenly the HDB prices started to go up and went up by how much? 14.5%. Okay, within a 1 year ish period. Okay, 1 year and additional 1 quarter, so 5 quarters went up 14.5%. okay, so this is very rapid increase. Okay, private property price index has been increasing since 2017. Okay, so that is definitely much longer. It took a longer time to increase, and it was at a sustainable rate at that point in time. Okay, and therefore the government waited until this year to actually announce the cooling measure. Okay, so to complement the cooling measures, the government also released the plan for next year's government land sales program, okay, for the first half of 2022, and it is about increasing the supply. So you know economics, right? If your supply increases but your demand remain the same or decreases, then the price will either remain the same or reduce lah. So that's the hope of the government, that this will help to so-called impede the rising prices, okay, so that we have a more sustainable pricing for Singapore properties and a safer environment for you to invest in property, all right, for the long term. So 5 parcels of land were announced, okay, and these are the 5 parcels. You can have a look, okay, which contributes to about 2,765, is it? 85 units, okay, in total, okay, of supply. In other words, developers who want a piece of next year's market, you know, they will bid for this and they will have land for them to develop and then sell properties to Singaporeans. Okay, so this contributes to the supply, and you can see that on top of it, the government also announced 23,000 BTO next year. Okay, 23,000 BTO next year. All right, so with this increased supply, hopefully it will impede the rise of the prices, okay, for a more sustainable future. Okay, I'm going to repeat that multiple times because that is really the whole intent of all this. Okay, and on top of that, there's also the reserve list. In other words, it can be triggered at any point in time by developers who are land hungry. Okay, land hungry, and this contributes about 6,500 units in total. Okay, 6,500 units in total. All right, so Will this thing really affect, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you are like, is this going to be bad news or good news, correct or not? And then there's a bit of uncertainty, you don't know how to move forward, okay? Yes, that will happen, okay? But how long will it happen? Well, I think fear and emotions will definitely override you for a while, okay? Then as more analysis, as more commentary comes out in the market, experts are weighing in, okay, on what will actually happen, and when transactions start to move again, okay, the logic comes back. What is the logic? Okay, look at this. So basically from 2009 until 2021, okay, you can see that inflation has increased by 20.7%, okay, but property prices have increased by 65.3%. Okay, in other words, real estate remains a good hedge against inflation. Okay, so now you have all that cash, you are deciding whether you want to buy into real estate or not. Then you are thinking, okay, should I buy other assets like stocks, okay, or other instruments, okay? Should I place the cash in a bank to earn interest rates, okay? Or, well, it seems like nothing beats property. When that logic comes back to you, then that is the time that some of you will say, hey, okay, let's go into this. And then you'll see more and more people buying, and then this logic comes back, and well, you are ready, and you are ready to jump in the market at that point in time. Okay, so how long would that take? Okay, very simple. We have to ask ourselves whether this has happened before, and I will come to that later on. All right, so let me summarize for you latest measures, okay, from today onwards, 16th of December. What do you need to take note? Okay, first thing, new cooling measures will apply as follows. Three things. ABSD rates will be adjusted. Refer to the table I showed you just now. TDSR will be lowered to 55%, and HDB maximum loan granted capped at 85%. Okay, and what about the OTP that were issued before 16th of December 2021? Well, to be clear, latest by 15 December, you have to exercise the OTP by 5th of January 2022, or expiry option, whichever is earlier. Okay, in other words, you need to exercise your option by 5th of January in order to enjoy the previous rates. Okay, and then if you exercise after the 5th, then therefore good luck to you, okay, if you're buying your second property or more. All right, and then some of you say, is there any way for me to circumvent this, and my advice to you is no, because it's important to note that it is a criminal offense to backdate the OTP. So don't let anybody convince you to do so. All right, this is my advice to you. All right, okay, so who are the parties affected? First thing, if you are a Singaporean buyer or a PR buyer, okay, buying your second or more properties. Okay, you are foreign buyers, definitely, and of course, if you're entities, a company buying a residential condominium. Okay, does it affect first-time homeowners? Not affected. And I need to give you some. Congratulations, you can still buy and you don't need to pay ABSD. Or if you are PR, then you pay 5% ABSD. That's all. Okay, we hope you become Singaporeans one day. Alright, how does it affect developers? Okay, developers bidding for the land will have to pay an ABSD of 5%, and this one is non-remissible, and 35% if the remaining units are unsold after 5 years. Okay, so this is really the developer, okay, making a judgment call, believing that the property will be completed and sold within 5 years. Okay, and therefore they don't have to pay that, just 5%. All right, and so this is the cost of doing business. Alright, and let's go on. For loans, HDB and bank loans. How about HDB buyers? Any impact? Maximum loan is 85%, so your HLE application will be adjusted to a cap of 85%. Maximum bank loan is 75% as per normal, okay, as per existing, subjected to MSR 30%, which is a mortgage servicing ratio of 30% and a total debt servicing ratio of 55%. How about EC buyers? Okay, max loan is 75% from bank, okay, subjected to MSR 30%, subjected to TDSR 55%. Okay, so talk to your bankers, talk to your agents, talk to mortgage brokers. They will explain this to you, okay, if you are thinking of buying. Okay, but more importantly, buy or don't buy, right? That is why you should the purpose of this talk is to give you an idea how to navigate that. All right. Okay, so coming back to what I asked you just now, has this thing happened before? Okay, and then if it has happened before, what can we learn from the past? Okay, definitely, I think if you've been in the market long enough, you will know that this has happened before. Okay, and let's see what actually happened in those days. Okay, so prices have been going up, you know, since 2008, you know, 2009. After the global financial crisis, there was a rebound, you know, and prices keep going up, volumes keep increasing, you know, and then somewhere in December 11, November 11, they announced ABSD regulations. Okay, you can look back, you know, there's a link below, okay, where you can read up on exactly what the measures were announced. Okay, but ABSD 1 was announced, and then guess what? Did it affect the market? Yes to the volume, no to the price. The price continued to go up, all right? But the volume affected for 2 months. After that, it rebound back to normal. I mean, 2 months only. Then the logic kicked in, understand? Okay, and then after that, ABSD was, because the prices keep going up, volume still high. So ABSD 2 announced, okay, this one, wow, big one. Okay, big one. So prices flat. Okay, volume drop, but drop for how long? 1 month. After that, increase. Can you see that? Then after that, they announced the total debt servicing ratio of 60%. Okay, and that one affects the affordability. ABSD affects the cost of ownership, but TDSR affects the affordability. Previously, I can afford a 1-bedroom, but after TDSR, I cannot afford a 1-bedroom. Understand? ABSD is, okay, I can actually buy a 1-bedroom and I still have 50,000 cash, but now with the ABSD, I buy the 1-bedroom, I don't have the cash left. Okay, something like that. All right, so one, cost of ownership. 2 is affordability. All right, so affordability means what? You need to find ways to afford again. All right, so that's why it took a bit more time. It took a bit of calibration, all right, for the market. Okay, so guys, you can see that in the past, okay, when a similar cooling measure was announced, there was an impact in the volume, but the prices continue to go up. Okay, so let me just submit to you, okay, that this actually happened. What is your take, guys? What do you think will happen this time round? Okay, in terms of the ABSD and the TDSR. Okay, how will it impact the market? Okay, feel free to discuss with us, give us a call. You know why you shouldn't just listen to this video and then make your judgment? Because your situation is different from the other guy. Okay, the other person who's talking to you, okay, he has a different situation compared to you, all right, and therefore it might be more prudent for you to make an independent decision, independent discussion with us. Okay, and that is very important. All right, so I hope that has been helpful for you, you know, and wow, finally I'm able to say all that, okay, in one video, and then therefore it goes out to you, and then you just watch, and then I don't have to repeat myself. Okay, it repeats itself because it's a video. Okay, thank you very much for all your trust, guys. You have been coming to us with questions, you know, and we have been round the clock the whole day answering a very simple question, that is, what are the regulations? Okay, but the not so simple part is, how does it affect you? And the you is different for everyone. Okay, I got messages. I told the owner, congratulations, wow, you managed to get the property, okay, which you just managed to afford, okay, and you are able to still afford it and complete it because you purchased before the 15th of December. Okay, but those of you, you know, you are hit with this 16th of December, and suddenly you have to go and find some more money to buy the house that is ideal for you. It's different. Everyone is different. Okay, your situation is different, and therefore the solution for you, the advice for you is different, and that's why you need to talk to us. Okay, so feel free to have that discussion with us. Okay, and then we will definitely help you to navigate this. Okay, I think at the end of the day, you also need to be mindful that with every cooling measure, with every policy that is implemented, okay, there is an appropriate way to actually move forward. Okay, so for example, I think under the previous ABSD, buying the second property for Singaporean, you attract 12%, right? Okay, a lot of buyers, they were deciding, okay, should I actually buy and then pay the additional buyer stamp duty? For example, 1 million, you are paying an additional 120,000. Okay, compared to the person who's buying his first property. So is it necessary for you to incur that cost? Okay, so there were some buyers that did something called decoupling. Okay, and then they buy under the person who has no property, and then they are able to save this 120,000. Okay, for the $1 million property. All right, and then there are different ways to mitigate this, and I'm sure your agent or us, we are able to advise you on that. Okay. Second thing is that we have seen in the current property market, okay, a lot of the buyers that actually come to the show flat and they make their purchase, they're actually first time buyers. Okay, in other words, they don't own any property, so they could have done their decoupling, or they really are the first time buying the property. All right, and therefore they are managed to get involved in property investment and to see the returns that will actually outweigh inflation. Okay, so it's a good hedge against inflation. I think that is a very stable form of investment, and it might be just for you. Okay, so these cooling measures, okay, has also sometimes helped to simplify things. Why? Because previously you were thinking, hey, should I buy based on ABSD, or should I just buy under the single name, no property, and you are undecided. Now that there's an increase of 5% additional, suddenly it makes the decision so much easier. 17 or 0, 17 or 0, 0 lah. Okay, so and these people, okay, they will probably take advantage of the current market, and they will move in to get the preferred units. Okay, because stock will be low in 2022. It's expected to be low. Okay, and I will probably share with you more about this, okay, in upcoming videos. Okay, so that you know how the market is going to be like. All right, so yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, your situation is different. Okay, the advice for you will be very personal. Okay, and therefore do speak with us. Okay, we are glad to share with you our resources, our law firms that work with us, and our bankers that work with us. So we will be happy to share with you those contacts. And therefore you can have a more professional opinion. Okay, with regards to the expertise. Property agent will be property related, bankers will be for the loan, and of course legal compliance process will be the lawyers. Okay, so therefore we work independently as professionals to ensure that you have that very safe investment. Okay, so without further ado, okay, this is Marvin Lee. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching to this end. If you have found the video to be useful, okay, feel free to forward it to your friends or your relatives, and then you can always hit me up. If you're watching this on my YouTube, then please click the like and the subscribe and the notification bell, so that you will be updated every time I upload a video. Okay, which will be frequent. Okay, moving forward. Okay, hopefully that you can learn as much that is necessary to make your investment journey safe and pleasurable. Okay, once again, this is Marvin. Thank you for spending your time, and I'm going to give you some music. Okay, so bye bye.